what's up with all of the crazy stories in the Bible? Like, did these things actually happen? Did God really drown the world in a worldwide flood? Are miracles even possible? We'll talk about all of this and more, so get ready to dive in. Many of you have probably heard of this man. His name is Thomas Jefferson, and he was one of the founding fathers of our country. But what you might not know about Thomas Jefferson is that he had his own Bible. It's called the Jefferson Bible, and it looks something like this. Now, I don't know how well you can see that from where you're sitting, but Jefferson's Bible was cut up. Thomas Jefferson cut out all of the miracles in the Bible. He didn't believe that they were possible. He believed that the Bible was full of good moral teachings that had just been corrupted over time, and the miracles were some of those corruptions. See, Thomas Jefferson believed that we could only know things based on our human reason, and to him, miracles were just unreasonable. So does Thomas Jefferson have a point? What exactly are we talking about when we refer to miracles in the Bible? Let's start with the definition. So miracles, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, are a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. Or, to put it more simply, a miracle is just an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. So whatever definition you use, a miracle clearly shows God's intervention, God's work in our world in a way that science and nature just simply can't explain. So today, we're going to go through 3 points that will hopefully explain to you why, first, miracles are possible, and also why Christians need to believe in miracles. So the first point is that natural explanations actually lessen God's sovereignty. See, if all that exists is just nature, or if God is simply an old man just sitting on a throne and looking down at the earth, what kind of God would that be? Wouldn't the most powerful, sovereign kind of God be the God who can actually go down and be in and amongst his creation, to shape and to work it, and even to withhold the natural laws at certain times? Isn't that the ultimate kind of God? And if we say that God is not capable of doing that, or that he doesn't do that, that lessens who God is. See, as Christians, we believe in a sovereign God. We believe in a God who intervenes. We believe in a God who is both transcendent and immanent. And that brings us to our 30-second theology. Welcome to 30-Second Theology with Nerd Russ. Today, we are talking about immanence and transcendence. Intern, start the clock. So imminent comes from the root word in, which means in, and manere, which means remain. And so therefore, imminent means to remain in the material world. Transcendentum means to rise above, and therefore transcendent means to rise above or means to be outside of the material world. As Christians, we believe in both. And so therefore, God is immanent and transcendent. Stop the clock. See, we believe in a God who is both transcendent and immanent, a God who exists outside of his creation and amongst it. God, the God that we worship, does do that. He does intervene in his creation. And that brings us to our next point. And that's that miracles may not be natural, but they are not unreasonable. See, just because there isn't a natural explanation for something doesn't mean that something is unreasonable. Miracles, perhaps, are reasonable. See, if you believe that God exists and you believe in the God of the Bible, a God who is transcendent and immanent, then the most reasonable thing to conclude is that God would intervene, that God would cause miracles to happen. That is actually the most reasonable explanation. And those who don't believe that are already coming from a presupposition that God either doesn't exist or that God is not immanent, that God does just sit on his throne. And so as we saw last week, whatever you believe about God impacts what you believe about many other things. These are the presuppositions or the already assumed things that people bring in to their beliefs. If God exists and if God is great, then God would intervene. It would be reasonable for him to do that. And so therefore, miracles, although they're not natural, they might be reasonable. And our last point for this evening: there is no Christianity without miracles. And I can't emphasize this enough. There is no Christianity without miracles. See, as great as the Jefferson Bible might have been for teaching people how to live and how to be moral, it couldn't get them salvation. You cannot be saved through the Jefferson Bible. At the end of the day, you are just left with a bunch of empty teachings, but you are not left with an empty tomb. See, at the core of Christianity is a miracle. At the core of Christianity is an empty tomb. At the core of Christianity is a God who died and was resurrected again after 3 days. And there is good reason to believe that this happened. And see, if God rose from the dead, then certainly he could have done all of the other things recorded in the Bible. So you first have to examine, did Jesus rise from the dead? If he did, then that changes everything. That changes the way that we read and we understand the Bible. But if God did not raise Jesus from the dead, then we're stuck with what we read here in 1 Corinthians 15. It says, "And if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain, and your faith is in vain." We are even found to be misrepresenting God because we testified about God that he raised Christ, whom he did not raise, if it is true that the dead are not raised. For if the dead are not raised, not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile and you are still in your sins. See, Paul understood that all of Christianity and everything that they had been teaching and preaching hinged on whether Jesus was raised from the dead. It all depended on a miracle. If it did not happen, then Christianity is not only false, but everyone who preaches Christianity and everyone who has died for Christianity has lived a meaningless, purposeless life. But friends, that's not true. See, Jesus was raised from the dead. There was a miracle that sits at the center of all of human history. And if that happened, then we can believe in all of the miracles of the Bible. So, what do you think? Are miracles possible? Are there naturalistic explanations for some of the miracles in the Bible? And what are the consequences if we take miracles out of it? I'd love to hear your questions. If you do have questions, feel free to submit them to this number, and one of us will get back to you really soon. But I am hoping that you all have a great discussion, and I am continuously praying for you all and can't wait to see you all soon.